Think of Mind Over Magic as a game that combines the building and management systems from going medieval, the magical school vibe of Hogwarts Legacy, dungeon exploration inspired by Darkest Dungeon, and survival elements that remind of games like Frostpunk. That sounds pretty ambitious, and honestly, it kinda is, which makes it even more impressive how good these developers are pulling that concept off. That doesn't mean there are no issues, of course, and I certainly wouldn't recommend this game for everyone. Take a look at this and see if this may be something that's right down your alley. At the very end of the video I have included some raw gameplay footage without me talking, so feel free to check that out as well. You are introduced to a world where a once thriving magic school stood against the mysterious, encroaching, deadly fog. Unfortunately, the school fell due to insufficient magic, leading to the corruption of the mana font, and your task is to rebuild the school. The game begins with you naming your new school and choosing your starting staff, who, despite their lackluster abilities, are the foundation upon which your school will grow. Similar to other colony sim games, you don't directly control the characters. You assign them tasks and set their priority, and the staff and students will then carry out these tasks. This works fine in most cases, and is intricately customizable for your preferences and needs, which is nice. But it can also become overwhelming because of all the tasks and needs that have to be taken care of. It's certainly no problem for you if you have played other colony sim games, but if you're new to this, you might want to pause your game often and observe what's happening on screen. What needs to be said at this point is that the tutorial is absolutely amazing in this game. Even people who haven't had much experience with these type of games will quickly understand what it's all about. Most windows that pop up explain the mechanics really well, and also include a short GIF or picture to maximize the learning effect. What's also incredibly helpful are the many tooltips that they included for various items, recipes, or vocabulary. Many games I've seen seem to not want to put in the effort and rely on you to use Google or the wiki to find out for yourself what an item does or where you get it. But in this game all the necessary info is provided to you, and that makes things so much less frustrating. With limited resources and that encroaching fog, of course, you must prioritize which resources to gather and which constructions to focus on. In the beginning you should prioritize gathering while keeping an eye on the fog's movement. With every night that passes, the fog comes a bit closer. You have to prevent it reaching your castle at all costs. Thankfully you can do this by engaging in rituals that purify the mana font and repel the fog. These require resources, and later on you will be able to do more advanced rituals that then require more resources. When it comes to building, the game's unique room requirements like lofted or skewed add quite a bit of complexity to the whole building process. The game itself tells you that due to this, you should expect to have to rebuild and readjust certain aspects of your school constantly. It's an ongoing and ever-changing process, and because of that the developers are trying to make the process as convenient as possible, but it's not yet as refined and flexible as it should be in my opinion. Something I personally didn't like much is that it takes quite a while to unlock very essential building parts like support pillars that make building in the beginning rather tricky and limited. The overall sense of creativity and personalization is very good when designing your castle, although due to the room requirements you may not have just as much freedom as you'd perhaps want. Generally speaking though, I was very pleasantly surprised by how intricate the whole building system is, with its lighting levels, structure integrity, and permits. Summoning students and assigning them tasks is a key part of the gameplay. You're crafting wands for your students, and the type of wand, like fire or lightning, influences their abilities and roles. So as you continue to push back the fog and gather more resources, you plan the expansion of your academy. In the beginning the best way is to build vertically, since resources constantly respawn at the right and left side of your castle, but of course only as long as you haven't built on it. Each time you push the fog out further and further, you not only unlock more space, but also various types of resources that have been inaccessible until now, due to the fog. The research tree of Mind Over Magic is pretty large and there's tons of stuff to unlock. One thing that I could see limit the enjoyment a bit later on for some players is that it can take a really long time to unlock stuff in a tech tree. This has its good side too, because otherwise you would possibly progress the game too fast, but it's worth mentioning that it can take a good while. As you may expect, there is fighting in this game, in form of the Underschool. Imagine this place like a hidden underground maze. Each fight will take some strategy, as they are turn-based combat, and you will be rewarded with loot including arcane scrolls, which you need plenty of to unlock stuff in your research tree. Battles become progressively harder as you explore deeper in the Underschool, but the whole thing is definitely not one of the main selling points in the game in my opinion. It's nice that it's there to get some action next to the whole magic school managing aspect, but it can get repetitive fairly quickly. Also another note that may be of importance to some potential buyers out there. When playing this game, keep in mind that you shouldn't get attached to most of your characters, because if they're a student, they'll have to either graduate, or if they're a teacher, retire at some point. You can, however, hire a student that already graduated to become a teacher at your school. Before we go to the raw gameplay I prepared for you, this game is similarly priced to other colony sims like Going Medieval or Oxygen not included, but this one only came into early access 3 months ago, so it's certainly not as refined as those titles yet. If you absolutely dig the wizarding school approach here, then I think it's worth the money for sure. Otherwise, I would probably wait until it goes on sale. The update history is pretty promising, so you can expect to get a more fleshed out experience as they update the game. I will now leave you to the gameplay. If this video was helpful, a like is appreciated, as it helps get this video to more people. See ya!